Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it. We have made it. Opening week is upon us. Welcome to this edition of D2 Tuesday. My name is Victor Anderson. We got a lot of interviews to get to, folks. You know where you can find our podcast. You know where you can find us on social media. So let's jump right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we're going to start with the reigning defending national champion Nighthawks of North Georgia. And for head coach Mike Davenport, he returns the core of that team in 2024. They recently had a chance to go to the state capitol and have a declaration for the national championship. But as you hear with my interview with Coach Davenport, I reference a tweet or a post he put out on social media about how last year's achievements don't mean anything this year. All that and more coming up with North Georgia head coach Mike Davenport right here on D2 Tuesday. We start off our D2 Tuesday season preview with the head coach of the defending national champion Nighthawks of North Georgia, of course, our good friend Mike Davenport. Coach, how are you, sir? Welcome back.
We're doing good. Just trying to stay warm and dry up here in the mountains of North Georgia, and getting ready for another season and D2 softball. We're excited.
Yeah, and we kind of joked off there about whoever keeps scheduling your opening weekend in Gulf Shores, you need to have a talk with them because you're jumping right into the fray in Gulf Shores, and it always seems to be that case with you in terms of getting your team ready for that level of competition with that opening weekend over in Gulf Shores, and this year's no exception.
Yeah, I think with this group, we've got some veteran leadership coming back, and we've got most of our pitching back. Our whole staff is back. So it's just one of those things where it's, it works for us with our scheduling. It's only going to make us better. If you take your lumps, you get exposed a little bit. If you don't play well, you will lose games against the schedule that we've kind of put together. So I think it's going to be a good challenge for our kids. But again, we're preparing for the end, and you do that at the beginning, and you do that all the way through the course of the season. So, we're going to get challenged in Gulf Shores. Hopefully the weather will be good down there. Allie does, always puts on a good tournament for us down there. So we're excited about going.
And I know when we talked last year before the postseason, you were confident about the roster and the players that you had being healthy and being ready for that championship push. How much did that experience with that postseason kind of help you get ready for this season with the fall and how things have been going with you in the mountains?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty smooth transition. We didn't lose a lot of pieces. And so with the new players we got, either that transferred in and or came in as just true freshmen, they've been coached up a lot by our upperclassmen and players that have been here in the past. And that always helps as a coach. And when you try and create your culture and things that you do, where to go for practice, where to lift, where to find answers and stuff. And a lot of times if the players can answer those before it gets to our desk, that helps a lot in transition, and you're much more efficient. And the kids have done a really good job of kind of nurturing our underclassmen, trying to get them ready for the season so we don't have to do so much on our end.
So is it safe to say, Coach Davenport, that for you and Coach Leah, it's been a little easier for you to kind of coach this team with the experience that you had coming back from last year's roster in terms of acclimating those newcomers to the culture and the standards that you have set for your program?
Yeah, it's different. And anytime your culture or your roster changes, you kind of adapt with your roster. And for this roster, like Coach Aaliyah, Lily's just working with 5 pitchers that she had all last year. So now they're trying to take their game to the next level, right, as opposed to maybe next year where she's going to have probably 3 or 4 new faces where she's going to kind of get to know them. They're going to get to know her. So, and the same thing with me offensively and defensively. We've got a couple of holes we're trying to fill. We're doing that in a number of different ways. We've got some very talented players in here competing for some spots and some time, but several of our positions or some veteran leadership coming back. So with them, they've done a really good job of kind of coaching each other up and working with the new players and trying to get them to understand the way we want things done.
I know last year with your national championship run in Chattanooga, how much did that run mean for you and those players who kind of had to kind of go through some things later in the season, especially with Columbus State, having to go through them to get to eventually winning that national championship?
Yeah, I think, when you go through a season, you go through your ups and downs and the peaks and the valleys of it. And of course, when you're in the valleys, it doesn't feel good for anybody, and we've been on both sides of the stick. And, there's days that you're like, the sun's not going to come up tomorrow. That's awful. And it does. The sun does come up. But what I was so proudful of this group last year, and I think getting to Denver the year before was a big advantage for their growth and development, that, last year, it didn't carry over very long. And, we lost a game in Gulf Shores and we won the next 38 in a row. And then we lost a couple here at home, and then we went on another winning streak and kind of redeveloped who we were and our identity. We lost the game in the Peace Belt Conference tournament, and then ran the table from there on out. So the response is what you're looking for. You're going in this sport, in the sport of softball, you're going to have those valleys, and the good teams are the ones that can get out of those valleys quicker than the others. And if you stay in those valleys, then you're facing a long losing streak or the end of the season or whatever it may be. So, and I think that's a testament to the veteran leadership that we have on this squad, and the kind of character that these young ladies are. And they get along very well with each other, but they're good leaders and they support each other. So if something goes wrong, they've got each other's back. And I think that was evident last year for us in Chattanooga.
Your community supporting you so well in Chattanooga, going up there, winning the national championship, and then the celebration that you have for your team afterwards. Just for those who don't understand the culture that this North Georgia has, please explain to our fans about what it's like being in that community and having all of that support for not just your program, but all of Nighthawks athletics.
Yeah, it's just this community loves North Georgia softball. We've got a good fan base of probably 50 to 70 folks that come to almost every game. And then you start to get your spillovers and people that want to be associated with programs that are successful. And I've been in this community 27 years now, 27 and a half years. So that helps. We've developed a lot of relationships, but our kids are out in this community doing student teaching, doing lessons, eating at restaurants, working at facilities, restaurants, places like that, doing different things in the community. We give back. We're, doing as much community service as we possibly can as well. So when they get to know kids on a personal level, then they're invested. And I think that's what you see with them coming to our games. The support we have from our fan base up in Chattanooga was crazy. And of course, being 2 hours from Chattanooga helped, and we understand that. But I still think most of those folks traveled. We had a good support staff out in Denver last couple of years. When we won in 2015, we had probably a couple hundred folks there that had flown out or driven out to Oklahoma City. So they're there. And I think, Victor, you and I know we hosted Georgia here this fall, and there was at least 1,500 people at our facility, and it was spilling over into areas that we didn't always want fans standing or sitting, but that was a good problem to have. We had some parking issues, but that's a good problem to have. Yep. And, your D2 facility, we've got a good program. I feel like we've got a great community, a beautiful city that we live in and work in and go to school in. And you bring in an opponent as quality as the University of Georgia and what Tony's done there. And, you had a lot of dog fans here, I'm sure, but there's quite a few Nighthawk fans here too. So they just wanted to see good softball, and, it was a beautiful day, and it was cool to be part of something like that, especially to do it here. Something that we've created, and knowing that, we can do this at our place and at our level.
And one thing that I saw, Coach, on your social media, you said the following tweet: fall scores, good or bad, don't mean a thing. Preseason, regular season rankings don't mean a thing. What your team did last year, good or bad, doesn't mean a thing. Your personal high school travel ball rankings don't mean a thing in college. Has that message been kind of filtered down to your team in terms of, hey, we won the national title last year, we had a lot of accolades, but the focus is now on 2024 and writing this story with this group and trying to accomplish what we want to accomplish?
Yeah, and I think that's, it's kind of hard to explain to young people that what you did yesterday, good or bad, that's what we talked about, the peaks and the valleys, is right. Coming out of those as quick as you can, is you can build off of stuff. And if it's a valley, you need to learn quickly to get out of there and to stay up as high as you possibly can, be successful as long as you possibly can. And I think for us, that's a big message we preach. No one's going to come take our national championship trophy or their rings away from last year, what they accomplished, or nor in 2015 either. But now it's time for, you as an individual, the same individual that was here last year is a different individual this year. So you have to reinvent yourself. You have to get better. You have to take your talents to the next level. And I think for us as coaches, it's simplified our things. I don't, our goal, I don't know that every year is to win a national championship. It's to reach our potential. And if you're good enough, you'll put yourself in that position. And, we've got 25, 26 healthy bodies on our roster right now. And my job and Aaliyah's job is to have every one of those young ladies reach their potential. Now, that's going to be 26 different potential levels. If you can be an All-American and be the National Player of the Year, then that's my job to get them there. If it's your opportunity to maybe start 10 games for us out of our 56 game schedule, then we need to get you there. But we're all at different levels. So we're all not dealing on the same thing. And then collectively as a group, if this team has the ability to win a national championship, then it's our job to get us to Longwood, Florida, and put us in that position to compete for one.
And of course, to get to Longwood to compete for a national championship, that means you have to handle the Peach Bowl, which last year was you, Columbus State battling back and forth, Georgia Southwestern made some noise as well. It feels the Peach Bowl is improving over the last few years, Coach, and that's been of a benefit to you and the region as a whole in terms of the Peach Bowl growing and being more competitive on a yearly basis.
Yeah, for sure. The Peach Belt itself has gone through its peaks and valleys.
Yes.
When we first got in it was a dogfight every single weekend. And, I remember when we came in, we were not ranked in the top 25 in the country. And, but there was 4 to 5 other Peach Belt schools in there. And for many years, out of the 8 teams at regional, bids, there was 5 Peach Belt teams, and it's kind of flipped the script lately. And we've only been able to put 2 or 3 in. I know 2 years ago we had to go on the road just in regionals to prove ourselves, and we won the regular season and the tournament championship. So that hurt our feelings a little bit, to be honest with you. And hopefully everybody else in the Peach Belt took note. And we need everybody competing at the highest level, because again, when you're playing good teams, quality opponents, it's just going to help your strength of schedule, and it helps you in the long run. You got to get yourself in that position to be one of those 8. But on top of that, you have to have been battle tested and prepared.
And looking at your schedule, you'll definitely be battle tested. Just some of the opponents you got: Columbus State again in conference, Auburn, Montgomery, Alabama, Huntsville. We always know Coach Studeman is going to put out a phenomenal program. You got King, you got West Georgia, and of course Gulf Shores with West Florida, Valdosta State, St. Leo, among others. So you will know, it was almost like those are like kind of checkpoints along the way, Coach, to see where your team is and where you need them to be to get to those eventual goals and aspirations.
Yeah. And I think that's just, again, it's enticing to kids. And I think it's, there's days when you're like, wow, that was a tough stretch. And, we went 4-2 or 3-3 or 2-4 or whatever it may be. And you're like, that was a tough stretch. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. But when you look back on it, you're like, that helped us grow. And, if you use it the right way as a teaching tool, you can put yourselves in those good positions. Every program's different, so everybody needs to make their own schedule. And, I don't ever look and say, well, their schedule's too easy, their schedule's too hard, whatever it may be. Everybody has to have a pulse on their own program. If you're starting a new program and you're maybe not very talented, there's no reason to go out and beat your kids to death. And on the vice versa, if you're very talented and you have a good veteran team, then you need to challenge your kids a little bit. And you see what the Division I's are doing down in Clearwater. I would like to see something like that created for Division II sometime. That's maybe down the road for me. Let me work on Chattanooga first, get that all situated. But, I just think that's something that those programs benefit from. And you see the D1s doing it. You'll see some teams in Clearwater probably go 2-4, 2-5 or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, well, they're probably overranked, but it's a progress or a process. And you'll see them through the course of 50 games continue to improve. And then they'll be one of those teams at the end because of what they put their kids through early on.
And kind of those peaks and valleys that we referenced earlier. Because you could be 5-1 in Clearwater, you're at the high peak, but you're going to have a steep valley that next week in a tournament. And conversely, you could go 2-4, 3-3. You think you had a bad week, but next thing you know, you see a team in a Longwood in May, like, oh wow, they really improved. So it's kind of giving those kids that perspective. Coach Aaliyah, we brought her up a couple of times. How much has she meant to you and this program, particularly with the work that she's done with this pitching staff?
Tremendous impact on our staff. like I mentioned, 2 years ago, we were able to go to Denver, Colorado with this group. Some new faces in the circle. We had graduated some really talented pitchers in Abby Crawford and Lakin Chambers and Kylie Smith, our four-time All-American.
Yep.
And so it was this group's chance to kind of put themselves in a position to kind of tote the rope for us a little bit. So getting to Denver 2 years ago was an opportunity for them to kind of say, we can do this. And then you add Aaliyah's experience, her mentorship, her leadership with this group. And it was exactly what they needed last year. And you saw them just all improve. And again, that's what we're looking for. We want them all to reach their potential. And all the way through the course of the season, she handled 5 pitchers. They were all at 5 different places in their careers and in their abilities, I guess. And, but they all kind of reached their potential last year. There's not one of them that didn't. And, when you get to the World Series, you've got 5 healthy arms, and they're all pretty equally talented. You feel pretty good about your chances. Now, you still have to hit, you still have to play catch, you still have to get timely hitting, and you still have to throw strikes and all that good stuff. But as far as health-wise and having the bullets in the barrel, we had 5, and we were ready to rock and roll with anybody. And I think more than that, too, is the way she has cultivated just the staff itself. They're good friends anyway off the field,
Yep.
But having Aaliyah as their coach and kind of under her tutelage, they were able to kind of even take it to the next level of how much they supported each other. And they coach themselves up. They support each other as much as any staff we've ever had. They're just very supportive of each other and love to see each other have success.
And you referenced earlier in the interview, Coach, that having all of them back this year will only continue their growth under Aaliyah's tutorship. And for you as a coach, for her, with her experience at the D1 level at UCF, being in those pressure situations, how much has her experience and her thought process helped you out in terms of you leading this program?
Oh, it does. I mean, pitchers are in their own world anyway.
Yeah.
But I think when you have someone you can trust to handle your pitching staff, that lets me do a lot of other things that need to be done, and handling our offensive, impact, and defensive, and basically managing the game. And if she'll handle the pitchers and I'll take the rest, and it kind of lets her kind of identify with the needs that they need individually. And then we handle the team aspect of things. But that's a huge reprieve. And any pitching coach across the country that does that, that's a big role. I mean, it's like being a quarterback's coach or whatever you
Yep.
don't want to say. It's that things start. They're the ones that have the ball first in their hands. And when they let it go, obviously they need their teammates' help, but they're the one who initiates the action. So, they've got to have some good direction to do that.
I know with North Georgia, I talked about it earlier. It's a family, the community. Now you got a daughter who's on the basketball team, and your son, he's committed to play at Kennesaw State. So I'm sure that's some exciting times for you as a dad and trying to figure out, okay, where can I see my daughter? Where can I go find games to watch my son? So how do you try and juggle all of that together with what you're doing here with this program?
Well, and that's one of the reasons I stayed here. When I got out of women's basketball and got into softball, I knew I didn't. That was back in 99. I knew I didn't want to leave here. I knew there was something special that could be made here, whether on the basketball side and or the softball side. Just a great place to raise a family, great community. And they're so supportive of our program and our family as well. And, we've got a lot of good friends here in this town, in this area as well.
Yep.
And, when your kids start growing up, you start to see them develop their love, and you kind of follow them and support them in whatever endeavor they may be involved in. And, with Isabel, she just, fell in love. She kind of grew up in the gym, and, that was cool to see her evolve there. And, had always wanted to play for Coach Buffy Burson. And so when that opportunity arose, it's neat because, I bring in other folks' daughters.
Yes.
On recruiting trips. And I've done that for 27 years here, and shown them around and sold them North Georgia and what we have to offer. And then I take my own daughter to other institutions. And then when you bring her back here and you say, is this good enough for your daughter? Because you're selling it to all these other young ladies. And when it's good enough for your own kid, then you're at the right spot. And, so when your daughter commits to play here for, someone she's wanted to play for a long time, and a program that she's looked up to for a long time, that meant the world to me. it's awesome to have her. Gosh, she's about 400 yards away from my office right now. So, if she's playing at 5:30, we get done at 5:15. I may duck out a little early, but I'm walking in as the starting lineups are announced. So I get to go watch her play. And excited about my son, Harper. He's going to, down to Kennesaw State to play for Ryan Coe. Great program down there, Division I baseball. So an opportunity. He's got his work cut out for him. It's a very talented program, but, he'll be about an hour and 15 minutes from home. And, he's going to play for another guy who that's his home. Coach Coe played at Kennesaw State back in the NAIA days and transitioned to Division II. And now they're obviously a power in Division I. And so him going to play for somebody who's invested in that program means the world to me as well.
And I think, I could kind of see that pride when you're talking about your kids because they're crafting their own legacies with your name and they don't feel pressure that they have to kind of do the same things you do and that they're being successful in their own different fields.
Yeah, it's cool because, we're a small community here. My wife's been teaching K through 5 PE for 20 some years now too. So when we're around downtown, it's not just Coach Davenport. It's Miss Coach Davenport. All these little kids run up to her or, if my daughter's around and we're out eating somewhere, you got all these locals coming up. Isabel, great game yesterday, whether it was in high school or the college. And then, they'll talk to Harper about his football game Friday night or his baseball games over at Lumpkin County High School. So, they've got a lot of support going and on their side as well. So it's a really neat community.
And I think for Division II fans kind of as a whole, these communities that support these programs like yours, like North Georgia and these other programs, how important is it for those fans and those members of the community to invest and get involved in these programs? Because we're seeing Division II starting to grow more and more in terms of a national profile and attention wise. And we need those fans to help get involved and help promote this product to make it even more popular.
Yeah, it's big time important. I mean, you've got small communities. Most of our Division II programs are in smaller communities. If they're in a bigger community, sometimes they get overlooked because there's a bigger school down the road somewhere. And I get all that. We get all the Division I Power 5 football. We understand all that. But for us, we provide an opportunity for student athletes to really feel the love and to feel the love from their professors, from the support staff, from their coaches and from the community. And sometimes you go to these bigger schools and you kind of get shied away and pushed away and, don't talk to the athletes or whatever it is. But here you're part of that community. And, we've got 2 young ladies doing student teaching right now and they are the celebrities of those elementary schools that they're going to every day. And then those kids are coming to watch them play, here at North Georgia play softball. And so it's very cool to see that kind of process work its way through to where they become the local legends and heroes and things like that. And, but it gives our community members the support to really get to know our kids on a personal level at the Division II level, whether it's here, whether it's, Valdosta, Huntsville, AUM, Texas Tyler, wherever it is. Those folks in those communities, they get to know our student athletes, and you don't always get that at the bigger schools.
Yeah, and not only do you not get that at the bigger schools, you don't get the personalized attention that you get in those bigger programs. That's why I talk about all the time. Sometimes a Division II school may be the best option because you get a more centralized, personalized relationship with coaches, professors, administrators, and it grows you grow even faster as an individual as opposed to being just a number at a 60,000 plus enrollment in a large university.
Yeah, we could write a book when we're all done with this, when I hang the cleats up and the glove up. But yeah, the recruiting process is interesting and I understand it. And I think 90% of the coaches understand it. Competitive wise, you get your feelings hurt when you're told no and some kid's going to go somewhere else and, they get caught up in the Division I, pool, which is understandable. I get it. And, cause they do offer some resources at times, but in the long run, I think when you have a child coming through, which I've now been blessed to have 2, you want them to go to a program where they're going to be treated right. Mm-hmm. They're going to have a chance to be successful and they're going to get their education in what they want to study and probably in the reverse order there. But I think that's what's most important because for most of our kids, unless you're an elite basketball player, an elite baseball player, an elite football player, maybe an elite women's basketball player itself, the professional level is slim and it's hard. It's tough. This is not going to be a living. And my kind of sell to our recruits is this is your professional level. North Georgia is going to be your last time you'll probably ever play competitive fast pitch softball. This is your professional level. And we have a chance to win some championships here. And if you come, and I think that to them, plus the way, our kids are our biggest sell. I tell people all the time, we won a lot of games last year, probably, I think, more than anybody at any level last year in college softball, but they were better people than they were softball players last year. And, that's a testament to them, to their families, the way they were raised and, to the type of people that they are. And I think what made me more proud last year, other than winning, the last several games up in Chattanooga, was just watching our kids that weren't in the starting lineup, the way they acted and the way they supported each other for the last 5 days up in Chattanooga is very unselfish, and it wasn't fake. It wasn't rah-rah because they had to do it. They were told to do it. Right. They were sincere. They wanted their teammates to be successful because they knew we were a team.
And it's that genuineness, that authenticity that you see from the players who aren't in that lineup on a daily basis. That's where you really get those championship level teams, because everybody understands their role and they fulfill their role with 100% love and authenticity. And that's what leads to those teams that win championships like yours did last year.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think who it was, one of the Virginia basketball coach, who's done a great job, and his dad coach as well.
Tony Bennett. He
had stated one time, you want to coach kids that you can lose with. And I was like, what is he talking about? I don't want to lose with kids. And he said, but it made sense when he described what he was talking about is, cause I think the one year they lost in they were the first number one seed to drop in the final, in the March Madness. And then they won it the next year. And when you have a group of kids that when you lose games, you don't self-implode. And that was us last year. We took a big shot to the brow in the middle of our season last year. And, but that was the group, that was the locker room that I wanted to lose those games with, because the next game they turned around and we got the victory the next day, and then they went on and did what they did over the last 2 months of the season. So it makes a lot of sense. If you have a good group that you can go through some struggles with, and those kids are the ones, that you want to do that with and can handle that environment, then you've got something special.
A couple last things, Coach, before I let you go. What's been the mood and the focus like of the team as you're getting closer to start your season in Gulf Shores? And again, understanding that you're focusing on this year's team and focusing on getting to Longwood and not living in the past from last year in Chattanooga.
Yeah, I think our kids are good. I mean, it's, we've had some, the ring ceremony, of course, was early January because we waited till we got the rings in hand before we scheduled that. And, we've got one more event that we're going to go to next week. But again, I stress to them again that's never going to be taken away from you. But now the Georgia Blair from 2024, the Tybee Denton from 2024, the Gracie Mixon from 2024 hasn't won a game. And they understand that. And that's not something we talk about. I mean, I'm not a big talker. I think the rankings came out last week and we haven't even spoken on it. The kids see it on social media. It is what it is. It doesn't change a thing. It doesn't win us a game. It doesn't lose us a game. It's not going to help us next week in Gulf Shores. It's not going to hurt us next week in Gulf Shores. We have to go play. And, but I think for each kid individually, they've got to re-identify themselves and reinvent themselves. And same thing with me. I mean, I owe it to this group, and Aaliyah does too, to make sure this group reaches their potential. Last year, we've celebrated it. That will never change. But this year, we owe it to this group of young ladies to go out and help them reach their potential individually, which will in turn help us reach our potential as a team.
And the road starts in Gulf Shores, Coach, that you mentioned. And, Coach, always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you so much again for your time. And if your team does what you want them to do, hopefully we will see you in Longwood in May.
Sounds good. We just want a shot.
And thanks again to Coach Davenport for setting up the time to talk with me last week. Always a pleasure and a privilege to have him on board. And you heard Coach Davenport reference how last year's experiences will help them, but they had to focus on their own journey this year. And it's going to help that you have 5 players preseason all Peach Belt Conference returning on your roster in 2024, led by Sydney Blair, along with Mariah Wicker, Sophie Mooney, and Kristen Davis, among others. And they will be battling with Columbus State for the Peach Belt. Remember, those two played in the Peach Belt Championship Series, which was won by North Georgia at Columbus State. So I'll be fascinated to see how things play themselves out for North Georgia. The Nighthawks will begin their season at the Gulf Shores Invitational. They will begin play this Friday as they take on West Florida. Also will play Valdosta State, West Alabama, and St. Leo. One team that will be in Gulf Shores but will not see North Georgia will be Nova Southeastern. The Sharks last year had another historic season under the leadership of head coach Julie LeMaire, won the South Super Regional at number 1 Tampa, and before making it to Chattanooga for the D2 World Series. We look back at 2023 and look forward to 2024 with Nova Southeastern head coach Julie LeMaire here on D2 Tuesday. Our D2 Tuesday season preview rolls along with one of my favorites on the show. All she did last year, let's see, first 40-win season in over a decade, win the South Super Regional as a 6th seed, have 2 All-Americans on her roster, and now is a top 5 team in the preseason poll. Yeah, life is pretty good in Nova Southeastern for head coach Julie LeMaire, who joins me now. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Always a pleasure being on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, last year was very fun in Nova Southeastern, not just for your team, but for the program as a whole, which we'll talk about later. But as you get closer to the start of this season, has it been easy for you to kind of let this year's team know, hey, this is about your path, this is about your journey, and not letting last year be like laying in a hammock, so to speak?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that because we have a lot of kids that have invested a lot of years and time. And so I think we've talked a lot about just, the payoff for the kids in the past that aren't here, but then where the program has gone. And we have a lot of great new kids that have joined them. And, I always think that's an interesting dynamic, how that's going to kind of grasp together. But they've always had these goals. It's just whether or not you hit them. And I think once you're there, like, you get a taste of it. And so hopefully it's just that they continue to fuel themselves and have that, like, we've done this, experience under their belt, and then use that as a motivator and not something to hold you back.
But I know for your team last year, you were battling, trying to repeat back as conference champions, and then Tampa just ran away with the league, and they have been building a powerhouse over there the last few years. So for your team, what was kind of like those last couple of weekends like, to try to get yourself prepared for regionals, knowing that you're likely going to see eventually Tampa and St. Leo if you wanted to get to Chattanooga, which you eventually got to?
Yes, which obviously Tampa's history and St. Leo's as well. Those are all things that, we're a part of the league, so we understand that and we know that. I think that the biggest thing for the girls was having some belief. We've had a good few years against Tampa, and I think that started a slow confidence build for the girls, and then we felt like we were within reach during the conference series against them. So I think as we went into the last few weekends, it was really just, okay, what can we clean up from that? We also got Riley Langwell back for that, and we were missing her during the Tampa series. So there were a couple things that went in our way, and I felt like the girls just were at a point where they were understanding like what made us successful, and they really bought into doing that as a team and putting our best effort out there, and things fell their way. And I just give them a ton of credit for just being able to go in there with the mindset of having it go a little bit differently second time around.
And the way you ended your season, where you swept through your last 3 conference opponents and then you won the series at Florida Southern, I'm sure when you got to the postseason, you saw that you were going to end up going to St. Leo and Coach Kimberger. I know that you and her have had your battles back in the days when you're both in other schools. I'm sure that gave your team some confidence knowing that you're going to an environment that you've been in before and that you performed well against.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, like there's a little bit of excitement having seen who your opponent is, but then at the same time that can, that can be scary a little bit too. I definitely enjoyed Aaron and I's battles when we were together more than when we've been against each other. So, but, when it comes to going there, it's going to be a grind with softball and the teams that were there. Everybody had pretty aggressive teams and I just felt like it was going to be a dogfight from start to finish. And we're just really fortunate that, Liz put us in a position, Drug Miller in a position to where we could play defense behind her and then let some things shake out. So I do think there's some comfort going to a conference school, but every kid has a different thought in their mind with those emotions too. So we were just fortunate it worked out obviously to our benefit that time, but it's all about how you look at the process and, travel's exciting. So, but also going to somewhere comfortable can be exciting. So I think it was a good twist for us after having gone to AUM the year before.
Yeah. And how much did that experience last year? You got that taste of the postseason after winning the regular season title and coming short of AUM. How much did that serve to be a benefit for your team with that experience that you had under your belt going into St. Leo and eventually winning that South region too?
It absolutely makes a difference. Even from my first year here, we talk about the process and we line out what it looks like to be in a postseason and what the regional, but it never really makes sense until you're in it. Mm-hmm. And then, once the kids were in it, they were like, oh, okay, this is what this looks like. And so I feel like that has given them a better understanding. They really understand the process of the season for postseason, which is a very difficult thing to get kids to understand as you're going through. It's not just another day. This all shows up when it matters, for your seating and for where you go. But I really feel like the last two seasons, and I would even say like, our third full season before that has given the girls like a perspective and understanding to where they want to do what it takes during the process to put themselves in the best position to end up there. But I absolutely think for everyone, it just builds a little bit more confidence in the kids to know what they're getting into.
So you win that South 2 regional, you go to Tampa, number one team, dominant pretty much the last 2 months of the season. I'm sure your team, you were not intimidated going into that atmosphere, but knowing that you played Tampa tough about a month and a half ago in that series, I'm sure you knew that if we play our game, we're going to give ourselves a very good chance to be successful and knock them off.
Yeah, Tampa was an interesting, I think, it's one of those things where even the kids thought like, everyone thinks we're not supposed to win this thing type of mentality. I mean, and I hate to say like, obviously Tampa's an incredible program and they didn't lose a single starter. So that doesn't, that obviously creates, some veteran things that you think about, but I think for the girls, like our biggest thing was, they have an incredible pitching staff and we were trim on the pitching, not really body wise, but just in the sense of where we were able to compete pitching wise at that particular time. So I think that was a thought of everyone's, but like I said earlier, like Drug Miller is her mindset on the mound is incredible. I mean, after our second loss against Tampa, I think she looked at me like I was crazy when I said, all right, you're going to take the mound game 3 if you can do it. And she's like, they just beat us 3-0. Don't you think there's someone better? And listen, Julia's been great in the off season and the preseason, but at that particular moment, like she was the one that was getting us there that year. And I just, I think like just the mindset of that and the ability to have the confidence that like the team's behind her, I think made all of the difference. And we sort of shifted away from Tampa and more about like ourselves. And I think the girls were like, hey, we've worked really hard to get here. It can be anyone's game, as we know, right, with softball. So I think that they finally started thinking about themselves a little bit more in their goals versus like who we were up against at that moment.
So it's more along the lines of you're competing against your standard and the foundation that you've set as a program as opposed to the other people in the dugout. And if you meet those expectations and you play up to your standards and your expectations, that the results are going to take care of themselves.
Yeah. And I think that's the best you can do at that point in time. You already know what they have. It can be, both teams are putting their best out there. So, and I really think that helped our girls kind of stay focused on themselves and, just that process.
So you get the 2 runs, you're going to the 7th inning, you get the final out, and the realization sets in that you're going to be going to Chattanooga. What was those initial moments like for you, your dugout, Dana, who I know was a part of your team and your staff? I'm sure that celebration was full of emotions for everybody.
Yeah, it was very intense. A lot of crying, a lot of excitement. I'm a very emotional coach, so I get probably just as excited as the girls. I'm hugging and tackling people. So, but it was an incredible feeling. And I think for the girls, it was this is what it is. This is what eventually comes full circle if you grind and get after it. So I think in the midst of shock and emotion, it was just a lot of excitement for them. And it's tough going 3 games against the same opponent. And I think that's kind of a sigh of relief amongst it. But, yeah, it was fun to watch the girls celebrate and to see that their hard work paid off. And, it was just, it's a different dynamic that you get on the regular with your players. So it was a really fun thing to experience and see.
The excitement, not only with your program, but the athletic department as a whole. Your men's basketball team, national champions, competing to go back to back. Your women's basketball team with Coach Freeland Curry consistently battling at the top of the conference. So I'm sure it's an exciting time for your athletic department as a whole to kind of be in the midst, and especially with all the success that South Florida sports have been having going on in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's an incredible place to work. We have amazing coaches, so it's you're constantly learning something and bouncing something off each other, which and as we talk about in softball, hitting is contagious, and I feel like success is contagious, and so is that mindset and mentality around you. I think we did the math after last year, and I could be slightly incorrect on this, but I almost think I'm certain that up and down the hallway, every single one of our teams have made an NCAA in the last 2 seasons.
Wow. I
don't think there's one that has not. I think last year everyone but baseball and men's soccer made it, and they were at their NCAA championships the year before. It's just it's an amazing feeling. I feel very fortunate to be around such, obviously great coaches. So, but, it creates a great environment. I think it motivates your players in a weird way, cause, they want to win as much as the next team.
Yeah.
And so, but it's been a very exciting time. It's also keep your heads on straight at the same time, but it's been a great couple of years, for NSU athletics. Absolutely.
And I know building this program from when you started it, where it was, to getting it to where it is now, what's been the biggest lesson that you've learned in terms of building the program to where you want it to be and where it is right now, which is nationally recognized, and you're competing to win not only conference titles, but to compete for a national championship?
I think for me, I've always been a pretty, I would say, hard-nosed coach. So coming in, I have this idea of what we're going to do and what we're going to be. I think the biggest, learning, or maybe what I have found to be in a couple different places, the thing that's worked best for us has been really being able to be honest with the girls in the recruiting process in terms of what your expectations of the program are. And that this is where, you want it to be. I think sometimes they're taking a leap of faith that you're actually going to get it there. But, that has been, I think, our biggest thing, because in order to do what teams do on a regular, you have to have your players out for the same things that you're out for. And they have to understand that, a tough practice is because we want to be the last one standing, or that, going hard. And finding the kids that want to love each other, but also want to I don't know about want to, but are willing to be held accountable by you as a coaching staff, for that level. And, obviously it's not for everyone. So you kind of lose some as you go and you add more and you figure out where you need to plug holes. But, we really have kids that have bought into the process and that have seen the slow progression, year to year and then the payoff. So I think that, and then I always try to remind the ones that are here, like, there were a lot that went through a lot of things before you. So, it's been a process and your job is to now continue to uphold that. So I would say the biggest thing is the recruiting and we're all working at the same goal. Because that's probably been the biggest challenge and just the biggest, puzzle to maneuver during the process.
Navigating through the Sunshine State Conference as someone who has been in that conference broadcasting it, it's a bear, and that's being kind to say, Coach. How has the conference in the last few years prepared you for those postseason runs? Because more often than not, we kind of just highlighted a few minutes ago, you're likely going to run into your same conference foes to get to where you want to go.
I mean, it has absolutely prepared me. I think the thing about the SSC, obviously every conference is a different dynamic. One thing that's unique about us is we do a 3-game series. So, I do think that in itself amongst tough teams is a really good, it's a really good build up for when you do go into the postseason. Obviously you kind of have that winner of the series too, which, helps you kind of, prepare for maybe the next time that you see them or the next opponent. But, even since I've been in the conference, up and down the conference, every year it has gotten, I think the last 3 years it's been probably the stiffest top to bottom since I've been back. And, it's just tough. And then you're going against teams 3 times. And I think that, when you see teams in your conference that are, I don't know how many weeks Tampa was at number 1 last year, but
I felt like the last 6
the
8
whole
weeks.
season.
It felt that way.
The whole season. So for when your players, they don't see every team, but when they see teams that they go against on the regular, in and out of those names, like St. Leo always in, Rollins has been in consistently. I mean, when that is something that they constantly see, they think, hey, we can hang with everybody. So the more that you try to, I guess, change or mold your team to compete with those teams, I think at the same time, when you're trying to get a little better than the SSC teams or however you're looking at it, your kids are also going, hey, we can hang with the best teams out there because we're playing against the best ones, obviously in the conference. So I think that, it is tough every weekend. We talk about it in all sports. I feel like every weekend it's there's no true,
There's no bye weeks in the Sunshine State Conference.
Exactly. So, but at the end of the day, it definitely prepares you more for when you see them again, or when you see a team, outside of that, you feel like you've been playing good competition and you're prepared for that when you go on to the next opponent.
I've looked at your schedule for this year. That opening weekend in Gulf Shores. Gulf Shores is always one of the toughest tournaments in Division II. But you got AUM, who you saw the last 2 seasons in postseason. You got West Georgia. You got West Florida. You got Valdosta State, which is always going to be consistent. Spring Hill, who's going to be one of the favorites in the SIAC. And West Alabama, who could have made regionals last year. So
no, we saw him. We did.
You did see him. I forgot you did see him. You beat them to get to Tampa.
So it's literally like a recap of last.
Did you and the coaches make it like some sort of arrangement in the summer where you say, hey, let's run it back in Gulf Shores in about 6-7 months?
Just punish ourselves.
Such is life in the South region in the Sunshine State Conference. But, Coach, I've noticed your home openers. You got Colorado School of Mines, and then you get East Stroudsburg.
Yep.
Which is interesting because last year you opened with East Stroudsburg, and little did we know that you would be playing them 5 months later in Chattanooga.
Yep.
I'm sure when you saw that, you're like, wait, what? Wow.
Yeah. No, talk about full circle. But yes, Yeah, our schedule, which I don't know. I've been known to be a tough scheduler. That's kind of my MO. I always tell the girls, like, if you're going to be the best, like, we got to play the best and beat the best. And we also have to know what the best looks like. So, you know, for that, I think we've really benefited at times for playing tough teams, not only for strength of schedule, but just for preparation.
Yes.
So we do have a very tough schedule, but, you know, I think it's, I just really think it's going to be the best things for the girls, like, as they kind of build up and, you know, get ready for the long haul of season. So here we go.
Yep. You're getting good started. You got big games with AUM and West Alabama on that second over in Gulf Shores.
Yeah.
For you, when you first started, it was like nobody thought of Nova Southeastern. You're kind of like an afterthought. Now you're top 5 in the preseason poll. How do you as a coach now handle those expectations of being one of the best in the country and keeping your players focused on what we do between the lines is what should be the focus and not what other people or talking heads with podcasts say about you?
You know, I just think for us, like, we just try to keep it the same as we can and just talk the same as we did before. They probably thought I was out of my mind, but we used to talk championships before anybody ever even thought we could sniff a championship. And I just think, like, the more that you speak it, like, you know, obviously talking it into existence is what we want to do for our players, but also, you know, letting them know that what we've done in the past has laid a foundation for where you're at now. So this isn't where we want to change things. This isn't where we're looking for you to add pressure. This is just, we want to keep doing what we've been doing and obviously, you know, continue to look at every opponent like we have in the past, like, and just go at everyone like they're your toughest game that you have at that moment. And that's the way that they need to treat it. So I think for the girls, you know, we talk all the time, preseason rankings and rankings throughout the year and all of those things, like, you know, they're great and they're great for, you know, some recruiting tools and they're great for, you know, for confidence. But at the end of the day, like, there's so many times that someone that wasn't even in the rankings sneaks in and then, you know, or it doesn't always mean everything. So, you know, I think it's fun to see, but, like, just knowing that playing softball to the best of our ability is what we need to do and forget about, like, you know, all of the rankings past the, you know, just being excited that you're on the map at that point in time.
Your staff, you had made a couple of additions with Amber Plaza, who used to coach at Miami-Dade, one of the top programs in terms of JUCO, and you got Sydney, who you coached, now serving as your assistant after you had Dana in a similar situation. So I'm sure having that continuity, especially with Sydney, who played for you, can relate with the new faces that you have, which are plentiful, giving them kind of like that bridge of what you expect from them on the field.
Yeah. You know, I teased Dana because, she came in and we won the conference and we went to the World Series and I was like, you're like the greatest coach ever. And then she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to get out of coaching and get into behavioral therapy. So I'm like, you're smart. Like, get in, like, let's just like
get in, get your wins. And then I'm good. Thank you.
Yes, but, you know, I've had a few former players over the years and I really feel like once you get the program where you want it, you know, they're the best ones to help you take it to the next level. And, you know, like you said, Sydney LeMaire I hardly know Nova without her. She was in my first recruiting class. She was with me for 6 years with COVID and ACLs and she just really is a special program kid. And then she did a year abroad teaching. And then when Dana was deciding to get out of it, you know, Dana and I talked and she's like, Sid's a no-brainer if she, you know, has an interest in coming back. And we've known Amber for years and her and Sid they played travel ball together. So it goes back a long time and the trust and them being able to have the same thoughts as you before it even gets discussed as a staff and they're looking for the same things and they're upholding the same things. I just think it does like a lot for the program internally and Sid's like slid right into that position and just done a great job of, you know, probably beyond her years in terms of just holding the girls accountable, and she lived it. You know, she lived the growth of this program, but then also the success of it. And I just think that there's no one better to be able to, reach out or, reach them when it comes to the daily stuff and remembering how hard she worked for it. So we're excited. I mean, and they're both local to the South Florida area, and I just think it's just the perfect fit for us at that time. And we're really excited about, them being here and the girls that we've added too.
You've added 11 new faces to your program, along with Alexis and the rest of the team returning back. Has it been, as a coach and with the staff, has it been a lot easier to kind of integrate the newcomers into what the expectations are with the program, especially with Sid, who has kind of lived it for those 6 years, to kind of let them know, this is what coach expects of you, this is what we expect of you, here's what you need to get done?
Yeah, I definitely think, I'm also really proud of our returners. I mean, we return 5 or 6 that are key on field, but we return a big group that, have been here. So, I give them a ton of credit too, because, they're very welcoming of the girls that we added. And it's been a really neat, transition, because you don't always know what you're going to get when you add so many new faces to people that have been there. And I think our returners and our seniors in particular have done an incredible job of welcoming them into their family, but then also, realizing how much of a key factor they're going to be in our success. So, the newcomers during the recruiting process, I feel like the big buzzword was they wanted to be a part of what we were doing. They wanted to be a part of the success. They wanted to be a part of working at a high level and what that takes. And we were very open that that's, we get after it and we go hard so that we can, be at least in the mix. And I think that that's something our newcomers have really, some of them, it even seems like they've been here beyond their years, because they're we look for, a lot of them to be key contributors right away with the losses of, Tia Williams and Sam Burke. We have basically a whole new infield aside Kirsten Shaw. So I just feel like that's something where we've been a little cautious with, but it's actually, transitioned very smoothly, and we're really excited about just how they've all molded as a whole.
Couple last questions, Coach, before we let you go. As you get ready to navigate into this season, what's the big word or the big thing that you're going to be looking for with this team as they get ready to actually play against someone in a different color jersey when things get started in Gulf Shores very shortly?
I think for us, it's just consistency. I think the aspects where I don't want to say have lapsed, but I guess that's probably the right word, or where maybe we can find more ability to utilize, certain players and and that was a big thing with Julia ending the year, and her big, I think her big focus coming this year was if she were a little bit more consistent, she would have that more postseason mound time. And I think she's there, she's really worked hard on that. And that's what Liz brought to us last year on the mound, was a ton of consistency. And then our outfield has always been, very consistent and between, Rye and Lex. And I just think that we've shown that's what's proven to be our kind of, success base wise. And I think that with our infield, that was what we wanted to move forward with. We just need to find something that's a little bit more consistent, because the athleticism and the talent is there. So then we add them consistently doing it, and we have the ability to have, even more options when it's most important. So, and then just playing hard. That's just our thing. I just wanted to go hard and play hard, and, hopefully between the two things, the cards fall in their way, and they get to benefit from and reap the benefits of that, hard work all the time.
The national championships being held in Florida in May. With the conference, with the rising profile of the league, is there a little extra pressure as the coach to be the team from the Sunshine State Conference to represent the league when the national championships are held in the Orlando area in May?
I don't think so. I think we're all like trying to grind it out every year and putting pressure on ourselves every year to try and, be there. Sometimes the travel of it's exciting. Sometimes the home base of it is exciting. So, I just think like having a glimpse of the taste of it is, that probably is even more exciting than where it's actually held at. And we all joke like we'll go anywhere, if that's what it means. So, bonus that it would be in Florida, but I think that, you uphold those expectations and work toward that, regardless of the location.
And your season starts in Gulf Shores with some very familiar opponents, as we joked about various times during this interview. Coach LeMaire, thank you so much again for your time. All the best to you and your team in 2024, and we will talk to you down the road.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me, Victor. I appreciate it.
And thanks again to Coach LeMaire for joining us. You heard in the interview, we were joking about, okay, what did y'all like arrange to have whoever you played in the South Regional run it back in Gulf Shores in a few months? And, well, if you look at Nova Southeastern's schedule, that's essentially what's going to happen. Thanks again to Josh Raphael, new SID over at Nova Southeastern, for setting up that interview with Coach LeMaire. And the thing that I've been so impressed with this program, for full disclosure, and for a lot of you who may be new to D2 Tuesday, I used to broadcast for Rollins College from 2011 to 2018 before I jumped over to St. Leo for 2019-2020 prior to the pandemic. When I covered the league, Nova Southeastern was, I don't want to say an afterthought, but they were not the national force that it has become under Coach LeMaire under the last few seasons. And what I'm so thrilled to see with Coach LeMaire with her program is that she has built the program. There's been steps in the right direction, especially over the last 3 years. You get to regionals last year. You win the Sunshine State Conference regular season crown. You share with Tampa for the first time in program history. You go to regionals. You lose to AUM. And then you go to St. Leo, knock off West Alabama in regionals. You go to the number one team in the nation, Tampa. You beat them. You beat them to get to super regionals. And it's just been a phenomenal extension for Nova Southeastern, led by Alexis Smith and Lisa Drogmiller, who will be two of the many returners coming back for Nova Southeastern in 2024. Nova Southeastern picked to finish second in the Sunshine State Conference behind Tampa. Nova Southeastern kicks off their season February 2nd versus Auburn Montgomery, who was a part of that St. Leo regional last season. And the interesting note that you heard in my interview with Coach LeMaire, February 11th, Super Bowl Sunday, a rematch of their meeting last year in the regular season and in Chattanooga in the D2 World Series. Julie LeMaire and Nova Southeastern, Jamie Walbach and East Stroudsburg. You heard Coach Walbach last week on D2 Tuesday talk about that rematch with Nova Southeastern when they begin their season in the Sunshine State. Nova Southeastern will start Sunshine State Conference play the following weekend as they travel to St. Petersburg to take on Eckerd. By the way, they will have a rematch with Tampa at Tampa March 28th and 29th. The following weekend, they visit an old friend of Coach LeMaire's, Aaron Kimberger, and St. Leo for a Friday-Saturday series. We talked about the South. Let's take things out west a little bit. And the surprise, at least in my opinion, in terms of making it to Chattanooga, was the Cougars of Cal State San Marcos. The Cougars lost their first game in the CCAA tournament to Chico State, and it had to sweat through Selection Monday before they saw their name pop up on the screen. And the rest of it, they say, is history, as they won at Simona State and won at Concordia to make it to Chattanooga for their first World Series appearance in program history. We talk about that in a very variety of subjects with their head coach, the dynamic Stef Ewing, right here on D2 Tuesday. Joining us now on D2 Tuesday, quickly becoming one of our favorites here on the podcast, the head coach of the number 7 preseason team, the West Regional champions, a phenomenal year last year. Of course, talking about Cal State San Marcos, Stef Ewing joining us. Coach, good to talk to you again. How are you?
Doing good. Really looking forward to playing some softball. So we can't wait.
Exciting times for your program, especially after what happened last year with your team. And I'll just jump right into it. You go into the CCA tournament. You're the 3 seed. You suddenly get knocked out by Chico State. And I'm thinking to myself, are they even going to make the tournament? So what was those moments like for your team as you kind of had to wait to see if you actually end up making it into the West tournament?
You know, after we lost that game, our post-game meeting was quiet. It was a lot of concern, and I told the girls, I said, listen, this has to be a learning lesson for this whole team, that when you have an opportunity, you have to take advantage of it, and you can't ever leave yourself in a situation where you're leaving it up to someone else. And the whole year, I felt like our team, at times, we would step up, play, and sometimes we would just kind of show up. And really that's what happened in the conference tournament against Chico State. And what that was for us was a reality check. It was hey, you guys got to really get it together. And I felt like we were still going to make the NCAA tournament based on our scope of work. It would have gotten really scary if Chico State would have won the conference tournament, because then they definitely would have bumped somebody out. And they had a great run in the conference tournament. They really did. But I told our girls, I said, you know what? We're going to go home. We're going to practice like we're going to play next week, and we're going to wait and see if our name gets called. And what we really did is we just went back to basics. I told them we had practice, and I said, I brought out all the teams in the country that lead in home runs. And I said, our name is nowhere near it. So stop trying to hit the ball out, and let's start moving runners, hitting the ball the other way. And then we come out in the regionals and we just blow up the scoreboard with how we're hitting, and we just really caught fire offensively. So it was a really good, mature learning lesson for the team, because so many of the players were sophomores last year, of really, right. You have to take advantage of every opportunity. And guess what? When you make it to the conference tournament, you can't make the mistakes that we did, or you're going to get beat. And that's what happens at the end of the season. You have to be playing your best softball at the end of the year. Yep. And you know, what a ride we had going through regionals and super regionals, into getting to Tennessee. And trust me, this team wanted it all year. It was just, we had to grow up, and we had to have some learning pains through it. So I'm so proud of the team and what we accomplished last year, because now this fall, as the fall has gone on, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we have grown women on our team now. They have been through it. They get it, and they understand that we're never going to be put in that situation again, where we're waiting and hoping that on Monday morning when that selection show comes out that we hear our name. We're definitely not going to put ourselves in that position again.
And I'm sure when you were watching those finals and seeing Chico State come within inches of winning the auto bid and maybe knocking you out or knocking someone else out, and you see Dominguez Hills with the walk-off victory. But I'm sure when it came down to it, it was Monday morning when you saw the name finally show up. What was that kind of like, okay, now we can really go back to work?
Yeah, as soon as we saw our name, let's go. And why not? Of course, we knew wherever we were going that we were going somewhere, and we were either going to see Sonoma or Concordia. And we were just ready. We're like, let's just hear our name. Let's figure out where we're going, and let's go. And for us, last year, we got rained out in our Sonoma series. We didn't get to play them. We went up there, and we had a torrential downpour for 3 days. So we knew we were coming in and seeing a team that was really hot, had really dominated the CCAA. And we were just ready. The girls really were just like, bring it. It doesn't matter who it is, bring it. And I really feel like we just turned the page. We started playing team offense. Felt like the ball was a beach ball. That's the confidence that they had, and that they were passing through to each other. And that's what made it fun to hit, really fun to coach, and just keep waving them in, because that's what it felt like we were doing.
Yeah. And I was looking at the scores, Coach. You outscored your opponents combined 28-2, I believe, in those 3 games. And I'm sitting here like, wait, what? And I remember you were struggling to find offense in against the tournament in Chico State. It felt like that moment you referenced in terms of, okay, a learning moment. And it felt like your team took that moment and really embraced that mentality of what you and Coach AJ told them, like, hey, let's learn from this. And they took it to a whole nother level and be going to Sonoma and dominating regionals the way you did.
Yeah, it just starts with getting people on base. The biggest thing we had last year, we had a ton of people on base, and it was just when we had runners in scoring position, we weren't hitting them in. We rewrote the record in leaving runners on base. So it was finally about, hey, let's really, really focus on not making the moment so big when you have runners in scoring position, and keep it simple. All we need to do is pass the bat any way we can. If it's a walk, if it's hitting a ground ball to second and we're scoring a run, if it's a sacrifice fly, we don't need a home run. We don't need the big hit, just pass the bat. And that really caught on for this group, and that's really what led us to have such a successful postseason run.
And now you go to Concordia, who's been the big dog of the region the last few years with Coach Rosenthal, what they've been able to do. You jump on them in game 1, you beat them 9-0, and I'm sure they're feeling very confident with themselves going into game 2. So how do you try and keep them level and focused on understanding we're one win away, but we have to do the same things that got us to that point to get to Tennessee?
Well, the year before, we had done the same thing at home. We played Dominguez Hills in Super Regionals. We won game 1, came back day 2, and Dominguez Hills beat us twice. And so when we beat Concordia that first day, I looked at everybody and I said, it's not over. Nobody celebrate. Nobody say a word, because tomorrow is going to be hard, and they're coming. They're coming. I even had parents trying to come up to me after the game and tell me good job, and I just said, no, I'm not even hearing it. The job is not done. It is a best 2 out of 3. It is not done. Talk to me tomorrow. And we all knew, hey, Concordia, that team was a great team.
Yeah.
They had great pitching. They had so much experience, really good hitters, really mature players. We knew that they were going to bring it the next day, and it was going to be a battle. So trust me, there was no easy feeling. It was, all right, let's go back to the hotel. Let's get something to eat. Let's get a good night's sleep, because tomorrow is the battle of all battles. That's what we got to do.
And then you come out, you get yourself opportunities, you get that win 4-3, and I'm sure when you got that final out and you knew that you were going to go to Tennessee after almost missing the tournament altogether, I'm sure the celebration with you, your players, Coach AJ, I'm sure that was a scene to behold in Irvine when you guys got that final out to win the Supers.
So it was amazing. It was just such a sense of accomplishment for the whole group. When you have a goal all year and you are just grinding every single day, to finally have that moment where you can let your shoulders down and breathe, to know, hey, we made it, we're going to the finals, is something I think every coach wants to be able to have that moment with their players, and you want that for your kids because they work so hard.
Yeah.
So I loved it for them, to be able to see that. And crazy enough, our 4 seniors, 2 of them, Bianca Gutierrez and Ryan Steiner, they got in their parents' car and drove back to school because they graduated. And so did Coach AJ.
Wow.
Coach AJ also graduated that night after we won the game. He carried the championship regional trophy across the stage while the president of our university said his name and held it up, and the crowd roared. Let me tell you something. It was the most amazing thing ever. He's like, I'm taking the trophy and I'm going to bring it up on stage. And I was like, okay. And they did. All 3 of them got in a car and they flew back to San Marcos, and they made it. They were the last 3 people that walked across the stage. And it was a moment that just capped off an even better moment from winning, the Super Regional that day. But there's an awesome picture of Coach AJ with the president of our university, and they're both holding up the regional championship trophy on graduation in the cap and gown. That's just something that's like storybook right there. You can't make that up.
Wow. Unbelievable. And I know when we talked the first time, you referenced how pivotal Coach AJ Robinson has been for you and for your team. And to not only to see him be a part of the accomplishment on the field, but to then go back to to do all this while getting his degree and getting his diploma as well, I'm sure that's an extra sense of pride for you as a coach and for your players to see, hey, here's someone who's doing it in the classroom like us, and also making sure that he's putting us in the best positions to do it on the field.
He did a phenomenal job in balancing what it takes to be able to take multiple classes and be a coach. He's a tremendous role model for our team, and really for everybody in our athletic department. AJ is a softball lifer. I have to tell him sometimes to go home. I'm literally like, you need to go home. Like, let's leave the field alone. Like, I know you love it, and we love that you love it. But he does such a tremendous job. He is so committed to this team and making sure that our girls are prepared in the scouting that he does, in the detailed level of the way that he does in recruiting. He also coaches a club team. Guy's unbelievable, in his amount of knowledge that he has. And he's a constant learner. He's always trying to go to camps and clinics and learn more from other coaches. He's phenomenal, and the girls love him, and we're super proud of him to see him get his degree last year. And now I tell him all the time, I'm like, well, are you going to get that master's degree or what? So what's coming up next?
Hey, don't put that carrot in front of him, Coach. He may take you up on it, though. So we're just saying. Now,
I think he's gonna be good. He's gonna take a little time off before that might happen, but. It's really nice actually to be able to see this fall. He's just not so stressed because he doesn't have quite as much on his plate with his classes and everything. So it's nice to be able to see him be able to, not be, I'm looking forward to in the spring, not seeing him on the bus with his laptop open, writing a paper or doing something that he needed to do. So that'll be good. Last year, he's on the bus writing a paper, and I've got my iPad and I'm watching college basketball games or something else, and I'm like, oh, watch this, and he's like, I'm in the middle of something, I can't look at that right now.
He's like, okay, you already got enough student athletes doing that on the bus. Now you got your lead assistant over there working on the paper. You're like, what hey, help me here.
They made it really easy last year to tell the girls, if Coach AJ is doing work, you better be doing work. So.
Facts. We call that leading by example, as they always like to say, Coach. Now, we kind of mentioned briefly before we started the interview, the fall with the experience and your team coming back. Has it made coaching easier for you and Coach AJ with the experiences that you had and the experience you have on your roster for this upcoming season? Because you have a lot of talent returning, you have some players coming in via transfers, and it almost feels like talking to you that this year's team has the opportunity, when everything is right and healthy, to give teams a lot of different looks and can give yourselves a lot more opportunities to rack up those victories.
So as far as it being easier to coach the team, I think right now what we're able to do is really focus less on fundamentals and more on what do they need as a player to be able to perform at a high level and not feel so much pressure in those situations, to really be able to focus a little bit more on the mental side of the game. Really focus on being able to slowing the game down and helping them process and really helping them mature. So our newcomers have really done a good job of buying into our culture and having the returners teach them the ropes. But I feel like right now we're just really able to take the softball IQ to a next level because we do have we have 13 juniors, and of those 13 juniors, 10 of them have been in our program for the last 2 years. So they understand our philosophy and what we're doing, but we're trying to take it to a whole nother level where, they just are mentally there and thinking of things and preparing for things in a whole new way. As a coach, you always want your player to take care of the ball and then anticipate the next play. And I feel like this fall, with the maturity of this team, we are anticipating the next play and the play after that and the play after that. They really are. So it's going to be an exciting season. I can't wait to see what this group does with just all the different things that we're going to be able to do. We're faster than we've ever been. Speed in San Marcos hasn't always been two words that can go in the same sentence. We can definitely say that now, and definitely have a lot of depth in the circle, and we're hungry. We got a taste of what it was like to make it to the Final 8 last year, And this group was not satisfied with just being there. They want to take something home with them. So that is definitely, what we're looking forward to. And it's going to start with our first game against Chaminade, taking it one game at a time, as we start, the gauntlet of our schedule.
And gauntlet is kind of putting it lightly. You got Colorado Christian, Western Washington, Northwest Nazarene. You play in Irvine again. You host the Delphi, who's a powerhouse in the East region. And of course, navigating through the CCAA. You set up your schedule, Coach, to where if your team gets to Florida in May, they will really play some of the best, not just in your region, which has always been kind of unpredictable. The last 2 years have been any indication, but some of the best teams in the nation.
We're not scared of a challenge, and I really believe in the strength of the West region and how good these teams are. The CCAA is a tough conference. Azusa last year, they were a tough team late in that regional, and their pitchers coming back. We've got some teams that have some transfers coming in. NNU is always good, and they still have Sydney Booth, their pitcher. I'm like, oh my gosh, she hasn't graduated yet. That kid is a stud. So there are so many teams in our region that really, it's a dogfight. I know it's a dogfight in every region, but anybody can come out of the West. It really can. You just don't know what's going to happen. And, we're ready for the challenge, and we're fortunate enough to be someone that people are talking about, but we know that we're going to respect every opponent, and we know that anytime we step on the field that the team that we're facing is loaded with really good players.
And I think the biggest thing, Coach, is that you're getting to host for the first time ever the CCA tournament in your backyard in San Marcos. I know that's a long way away, but for your team, your university, for the community of San Marcos, what does that mean for you, knowing that the program you've helped build gets rewarded by hosting a conference tournament coming up at the start of May?
Well, I think anytime we have an opportunity to bring people onto our campus and show them our beautiful field, our field is beautiful. It's a wonderful opportunity to continue to grow our program. And I think if you ask anybody in our conference, they like playing on our field. It's palm trees in the background and a really good surface. So it's going to be exciting to host that event. And, we're going to do our best to put on a top-notch conference tournament that everybody can really appreciate, from the person that's taking your tickets to the person who's taking care of the field. And we're absolutely thrilled to not have to be on the road right before finals. That's really nice, because academically that's going to take some stress off of the team. And it's always great to be able to play at home. So, to be able to sleep in your own bed and do those things. So yes, the conference tournament is a long way away. And we certainly are looking forward to hosting it. But only the top 6 make it. So, definitely have some work to do to make sure that happens. But, at that point in time in the season, it's anybody's game. Anything can happen in those conference tournaments. Yes. They're always crazy and tons of upsets happening. And, we just need to take care of business and win our game so that we can put ourselves in the best position possible to have a successful, regular season in the conference, do well in the conference tournament, and then roll right into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're going to start your conference schedule against St. Lacia State. You're going to start your season versus Chaminade, as you mentioned, in Irvine on February 2nd. Coach, a pleasure to talk to you, catch up as always. All the best to you, your team, and tell Coach AJ to take it easy this upcoming season. Don't have to worry about writing those papers anymore.
Hey, I definitely will, and thank you guys so much for your coverage and for doing D2 Tuesday. D2 softball is a really high-end softball. It's great quality softball and a great opportunity for young ladies, and more people need to pay attention to it because it's good stuff. But we appreciate you guys.
And thanks again to Coach Ewing for joining us. Thanks to Mindy Mills for allowing me to get in contact with Coach directly to set up that interview. Now, we did have some technical issues during that interview with Coach Ewing, so we weren't able to get the full details of our conversation on. But just from talking to her and listening to her, you could understand the excitement, the enthusiasm that she has for this team, and the fact that they have so many players back, and they've gone through that, kind of like Nova Southeastern, that ascension into national relevance. 13 juniors she mentions on the roster. 10 of them have been in the program for 3 years. A lot of them being redshirt, a lot of them being true juniors, redshirt sophomores. And when you think about Cal State San Marcos, naturally you have to think about Savannah Coyle, who's been phenomenal. Paige Donnelly, who came on the scene nationally last year when San Marcos was making that charge. And the West region is probably the most unpredictable region to figure out. The last 2 seasons, you had a 7 seed in Dominguez Hills and a 6 seed in San Marcos represent the West region in the D2 World Series. So who knows what will be in the cards for the CCAA and the Cougars this season. They start their year in Concordia on February the 2nd as they take on Chaminade, Western Oregon, Colorado Christian, Dominican, and Western Washington. But the one I'm going to be looking forward to, Coach Ewing kind of referenced this, February 11th, Adelphi makes the trip out west. That'll be a very fun cross-regional matchup. And then they will have a showdown with Simona State. Hopefully Mother Nature will be more cooperative when those two lock up. That, again, will be taking place at San Marcos, February 23rd and 24th. You can watch all the action on the CCAA network, and they will be hosting the CCAA tournament May 1st through the 4th. For full information, go to CSUSMCougars.com. You heard from 3 phenomenal head coaches, and only fitting that we wrap up our show with a coach who was just recently inducted to the NFCA Hall of Fame. A coach who has won a national championship, but a coach who is with a team that's hungry to get back to the postseason after a rare postseason off in 2023. Of course, I'm referring to the Vikings of Augustana, and of course, I'm talking about the one and only head coach Gretta Melsted, who joins us here as we wrap up this season preview edition of D2 Tuesday. Right now, folks, on D2 Tuesday, a previous guest of our podcast. She's done a little bit of everything and is now one of the newest inductees to the NFCA Hall of Fame. We're talking to Augustana head coach Gretta Melsted here on D2 Tuesday. Coach, thank you for the time. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Well, very exciting times for you. Season is rapidly approaching. How would you assess the preparations for your team as you get ready to start the season very shortly over in Louisiana?
Yeah, I feel like our team is doing well right now. I always think January is a blur for us because we have a little bit different schedule at Augustana. We have a J term, so our kids only take 1 class every single day in the morning, but that means we don't get to start practice for a few extra days while maybe some other programs get to start a little bit before us. So it's a real whirlwind, and we're getting ready to open up next week. I keep looking at the calendar, and I can't believe there's only a few more practices before we actually kick off, but we're excited and getting ready, and you know, it's like 30 degrees today here, so, man, we could go outside and almost play here if there was no snow on our field.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have to deal with the elements, which seems that everybody's been dealing with nowadays with the winter storms that have been hitting all across the country. Has that had to kind of adjust your plans in terms of getting the team ready with the conditions that you seem to have to deal with every year around this time?
You know, we're just so used to it up here. This is just like normal life for us. You know, and we were actually, well, I would say campus was shut down a couple days. So, when campus shuts down, no one can be on there, and they can't go to the practice facilities either. So we have to deal with that. But like I said, we're just used to that. And I'm just glad that the real feel is not, negative 40 or 40, negative 47 degrees below zero like it was a few weeks ago.
Definitely. We're certainly glad to hear that. And off season was very busy for you. You got inducted to the NFCA Hall of Fame this past December. What was that moment like for you when you got when the announcement came down and you'll be joining Connie Clark and Tim Walton to be a part of that Hall of Fame class?
You know, I think there's a couple things. It was, and it still is. It's extremely humbling. There are so many amazing coaches out there, all divisions, high school, travel ball, everything. And to hear your name called it was a surprise. I was in awe. I was speechless. And then yes, the two people who I'll be going in with, it's just amazing. So it's number one, it's like I said, it's extremely humbling. And, a lot of times I'm not awestruck or I'm not, at a loss for words, but I definitely was, that night. And, I was even shaking a little bit. Yeah, it was pretty special moment.
And I'm sure a lot of your colleagues, not just in the conference, but along Augustana and all Division II, were sending out their congratulations to you on an honor that a lot of people felt that was well-deserved and probably a little bit overdue. Do you still kind of feel those goosebumps when you talk about it and you think about it, even with you getting ready for another season and trying to get your program to try and compete for another national title?
Well, absolutely. Because it's such, it's hard to put it into perspective. It's, because it, like I said, it's so humbling. There's so many good coaches out there. And, I just am at my, 1,800 person little Lutheran school in South Dakota, and we just do what we can every single year. So, like I said, it's very humbling.
Certainly is. And again, our congratulations to you, Coach, on those accolades. Now, coming into this season, looking at your schedule, you are jumping into the deep end early on with that opening week in Louisiana. You got Southern Arkansas, you got Central Oklahoma, who made it to the World Series last year. Some ways that you want to go. What was the thought process in terms of being in that tournament and having that elite competition to kind of kickstart your season in 2024?
Well, I think people know that we never run away from competition, and I always like to have our team be challenged early on. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like every year we've tried to put ourselves in that situation to try to play some of the better teams in the country right away. I always tell my kids it's like getting hit with a 2x4 in the face, but it's good for them because they need to learn and see where they need to be at the end of the year, and they also it also helps build their confidence throughout the entire season. So we have tried to go and find tournaments that are going to have that top those top teams. We've gone down to Houston for years upon years, and this year I just thought, let's do something different. A good friend of mine, Jerry Bro, who used to be at Drury, he's the one that gave me information about this tournament, and we jumped in, and it just ended up that a lot of really, really good teams ended up going to that tournament this year, and it is going to be a great preview for the Central region.
Yeah, and you got Southern Arkansas, Central Oklahoma, you got Southeastern Oklahoma State, among others, in that tournament. And you referenced the Central region, you got conference, particularly the Northern Sun. I know last year was not the way that it wanted to end for your team with the ending and losing to Minnesota Duluth. How are they kind of taking that ending and using it to fuel themselves to get ready for this season and preparing to navigate, which is looking like, again, another difficult Central region to try to overcome?
Yeah, I think that they were already starting to get fueled immediately, like in our exit interviews at the end of the season. We've been very fortunate that it's been a real rarity that we haven't made a regional tournament, and the last time we did not make a regional tournament was 2016. And then before that, I think it was maybe like 2009. It's kind of for us that was a good reminder. And I actually felt my last year's team played very well, and I feel like we were where we were supposed to be. I mean, they played hard. We had graduated a really, really good class. I mean, you can't graduate Ashley Mitchell, 4-time All-American, and Amber Elliott, and Mary Pardo and, Amanda Dickmeyer and all these kids that were part of that national championship team and not feel it the next year.
Mm-hmm.
But our kids, had a fantastic season last year. I feel like they did everything they possibly could. I was extremely proud of them. But they know where they want to be. And so they started from there, getting ready for this season. And so I feel like they do have their eyes on making a regional tournament and have been working hard, ever since.
Well, you got another strong senior class coming in for this year, led by Tori and Kennedy, and you got Haley Houston in the circle. It just feels like this team, with the leadership in place, is ready to return back to regionals. And I don't want to say like this, Coach, but kind of exert a little payback on how things ended last year and not making it to the regional tournament, as you referenced.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's payback. I think it's just our kids trying to do the best that they possibly can. And for them, I do feel like we have a good nucleus. We added a transfer pitcher in Grace Glanzer. And for those people who know me as a coach, it's not just about the talent. It's really about the intangible things on trying to get them to that next level. And so one thing that we have been really working on is taking that next step, because anyone who's been part of a national championship team or some of those really elite teams,
Mm-hmm.
You learn that the one thing that those teams have is just a different level of trust with each other. They have a different level of trust and they have a different level of love for each other. So that's one thing we've been really focusing with our team, is to be able to take that next step, to get to that. And so that's been part of our preparation too, not just the tangible softball skills.
And for those players, what's been the biggest key for you and your coaching staff to kind of get them to that point where there's that level of trust that you've seen, that you've coached with those successful teams in the past? What do you want to see from them to try to get to that point as you get ready for this season to go forward?
Yeah, if I would have described my last year's team, and I always told them this, like, I don't think there are any better words, but they were the most lovely bunch of kids to work with. Like, they were just wonderful. And I think as part of this, like, taking the next step, they also need to take that next step and getting maybe that little bit of a chip on the shoulder too. Like, these were just really, really wonderful human beings that needed, maybe we just need to also kind of, have a little bit more killer instinct on going after things. And so we've been working on that too. So, but this season has just been a joy to continue to work with them. Again, they've got a lot of pieces. It'll be fun to watch and see how they progress through the season.
And with a lot of those players, Coach, as you know, you kind of have to develop that kind of that edge, that killer instinct, if you will. Did last year's disappointment kind of help build that with this team from what you've seen from them in the fall and so far in your preparations for this season?
Maybe a little bit, but I will say the one thing about where I work, Augustana University, and if you look at all the coaches, the one thing that all coaches would say here is we get really great kids here, really high academic kids. Mm-hmm. And just really, really nice kids. So sometimes we need to try to work on developing that. And so I think it's a byproduct of our university too. Yeah. So it's just, I would say every one of my Augustana teams has been like that. Some we just have to develop a little bit more to have that killer instinct. I mean, These are the kids that you want babysitting your children, which they do. They babysit mine, and role models in the community, because they really are. So those are the things that we've been working on.
For your players, being a part of your university, you kind of touched on the community aspect. How much do these players enjoy being a part of not just the team, but being a part of the university and being a part of the Augustana community, which I know is so well knit and so connected, and being so one of the best places to be at in terms not just the Northern Sun, but in all Division II.
Yeah, I really think we have a phenomenal university here, and you see one thing I always tell people is Augie people love Augie. I mean, there is a true love for this university, and it doesn't matter if you're an athlete, if you're a coach, if you're a professor, if you work in the bookstore, if you work in the cafeteria. There's just this real sense of community at this university, and so our players are part of that larger community, whether that's also the athletic community where they, are going to support other student athletes, because again, we are a small school. We're 1,800 students. A lot of them, of course are in classes with them, but a lot of them live with other athletes on other teams. So it's just a unique place. And like I said, Augie people love Augie. And that's why you see, if you look across the board in our coaching staff, yes, we've had very, very winning programs in all of our sports. But when you look at it, you see 18 years as a head coach, you see 20, you see, 25. You see last year our women's basketball coach retired at 34 years. It is a place where people stay, because of the type of place it is.
For those who don't follow Augie as much as they do, what makes Augustana what you say it is? What makes Augie Augie in the simplest of terms?
Oh, simple terms. That might be the harder part. It's just that the people who work at this university, they're wonderful, caring people. It's a very, very supportive community, whether you're a student athlete or whether, again, you're a coach or whether you work across campus. That's what makes Augie special. We have very, very high academics. We are a small private Lutheran school. It's our tradition. It's our values. And, that's what makes this place so special.
And for that, with all of those prerequisites, particularly the academic piece, you're looking for a certain player that not only meets the criteria academically, but what you're looking for in a softball player. Do you find it easier to find those kinds of players to bring into your program, not just the player, but the person and the student athlete?
Yeah, we're looking for a very specific type of kid here, and it's really a kid that's going to fit into our school. And as you referenced, they have to have high academics, they have to have high character and things like that. I've never felt like I've ever had to sell Augustana, because it sells itself. It is a place that I 100% believe in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stayed here for 18 years. And so it's a place that when people come, they can feel that it's different and that it's unique and that it's special.
And to go back to what you referenced earlier, when you love the place that you go to, you have that connection that after you leave there, you continue to support. We talk about Augie people love Augie, and that's how you have those, not only the coaches like yourself, but people who have been there 18, 20, 25, 34 years continue to show support for Augie because of that connectivity and that community that you have on that campus.
That's absolutely right. And, we see that on a daily basis. And like I said, it's just a great community, to be a part of. And we're located in a great city, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It is a gem, for people who have not been here, minus the cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
It has a lot of things going for it. It's booming. The city has actually grown by over 60,000 people in the time that I have been here.
Wow.
It's a thriving community.
And you're going to be thriving this year with Sioux Falls because you're going to be hosting the Northern Sun Conference tournament at your newly renovated Bowden Field. What was that process like to get those renovations for your home stadium? Because I know it started, I know you were talking about it for a while. You got the renovations done a couple of years ago. What would it mean for you now that you get to host the tournament with the new renovations at your home park?
Well, I think it means a lot, because we put a lot of time and effort into into the renovation of the field. And it's interesting, we call it renovation, but really what we did is we completely ripped it up and built the whole thing all over again, you know. So it's really a brand new stadium. And I feel like we really tried hard to try to think of, okay, what are we missing? What are we, you know, we didn't hurry through the process, because we wanted to make sure that it was a special venue, not just for our team. Our goals at the beginning were to make sure that players, not just the home team, but both teams had a great experience there and fan experience. And so we really tried to look at, when we were building it, we always tried to keep those two things in mind, with everything we did with the stadium. And, for me personally, it was a labor of love, and a labor of love for my family, because my husband was also involved in the project. My husband is a civil engineer. And so he helped out, and the best part about it was he was really able to help bridge the gap between myself and our administrative team at Augustana and the architects and those people, and what, you know, take their speak and put it into something that we would be able to understand, and then he could take what we were looking for and be able to give it to them on the design side. So for us, this was a real family affair on building this field, and we're so excited to host the conference tournament because the field is just amazing. For us up north, I know we don't always have heated dugouts, but we have heated dugouts. We have huge dugouts. We have bathrooms and dugouts, which is just not the norm in our area. And, you know, lights, which again is not the norm in our area. It's just a real, amazing facility.
And I saw the photos before we got on this interview, Coach. Folks, if you haven't been to that stadium in person, I strongly recommend you do so because it is truly one of the gems in D2. And you referenced, Coach, your husband being kind of the point man between yourself and the administration. So I'm sure you were giving your hubby a few points like, hey, can we get this? What do we need to do to get this in there? I'm sure that was a little extra special for you, having the love of your life involved in another love of your life in this, making this project be completed to how you want it to benefit everybody.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it helped us in many ways because he also actually caught a few things that maybe if we wouldn't have caught him, you know, later on in the project, it would have been, you know, something like that, or after the fact. So it was really special for our family to be able to go through that experience. And my kids love it too. So
yes, I'm sure they all do, and everyone's going to be loving it as well. The conference itself, you know them better than anybody else. You're going to have those teams. Minnesota Lutheran, I know, tripped you up last year. You got Sioux Falls. You got Minnesota State. What is, for those who don't follow the conference as closely as I do, of course, you coaching in it as long as it has, what do you expect when you navigate through the Northern Sun Conference and having to deal with those teams? Because you play double headers with two conference opponents every weekend. So it's very challenging to kind of navigate through and figure those things out.
Yeah, you know, where we're located, it makes the conference schedule a little bit different, especially than the southern schools or maybe West Coast or something like that. We only have about a month to be able to get in those games because of snow and because of temperatures. We were able to add 1 week to our schedule this year. We're going to try to go like the second to the last weekend of March, which might be pretty challenging in this area. But normally, we have had to play 6 games a week. You always have the double headers on the weekend, and then you have your midweek. But we were able to spread that out a little bit, but still you're getting a lot of games in a very short amount of time. And again, where we live, you got to be really, really flexible because you could have a snowstorm come in, you could have something, and those games are going to get mixed around and all over the place. So our players are used to playing a lot of games and again, in a very, very short amount of time. And as you referenced our conference, I always think, you know, when you look at the Northern Sun, you're always gonna have your year 3, you're always going to have Minnesota State, Mankato. You're always going to have Winona. You're always going to have us. And then Duluth would be the next one coming in, and Duluth returns a lot of players this year. But one thing I've noticed with the Northern Sun in the last few years is all teams, maybe some of those traditional teams that might be middle of the pack, or maybe some that have even been kind of more at the bottom of the conference, have really elevated their games and really have gotten better and better. So, it's better for our conference, and now it's getting stronger top to bottom. And so it's exciting to be a part of.
And not only does it benefit yourself, it benefits the conference, and it benefits the Central region, which has been, look, the region the last few years with Central Oklahoma, Rogers State, of course yourself, national championship contenders, and of course Rogers State winning the title 2 years ago. So if you go through the Central region and go to the D2 World Series, you would have gone through some of the best competition in Division II.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The Central region is very, very, very strong. You had Mankato who won it in 2017.
Mankato, of course, I forgot about them.
And then us in 2019, and then of course Rogers, and then UCO being there last year. But you go back in 2019 when we won the national championship. We forget about Winona State.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Winona State that year was unbelievably good. They went through our entire conference and they were undefeated. They were undefeated in our conference play. So the Central region is really, really, it's great competition. And if you can survive that, I always feel like you have a pretty darn good shot going into the national tournament to be able to do fairly well.
Yeah. And I think we kind of forget them because with the big three that you reference and with UCO and with Rogers, it almost feels like Winona State doesn't get talked about as much as those other schools, but they're consistently in the mix every year, and we have to make sure we put some respect on what they're doing on the diamond as well as what everyone else seems to be doing in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just kind of thinking historically, and I'm thinking even a couple of years ago, some of the best pitchers in the country, when Rogers State won it, Morales was their pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
That year, you also had Ashley Mitchell at Augustana, and you had a 4-time All-American in that region, but you also had Mackenzie Ward at Minnesota State Mankato, who was just absolutely phenomenal. So it is a strong region, weird region. I mean, what region goes from literally Canada all the way down to Arkansas? So just completely bizarre region.
Yep.
At the same time.
Yeah, and it makes for some very interesting matchups if the regionals have been any indication over the last few years. A couple of quick things, Coach, before we let you go. Getting the team ready for 2024. The understanding what happened last year, that's last year. Has it been easy for you to kind of get them to not focus so much on last year and focusing on their own story and their own journey for this year with the schedule that you have coming up and with the Northern Sun Conference?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we do a pretty good job of is just really focusing on what's in front of us and the team that we have this year, and not the team that we had the year before, or the team that won the national championship or whatever. And so that's what we've really been focusing on, and our kids know that they know who they return, and we added depth to our pitching staff, and they know it. When you add a Grace Glanzer to your staff, that's a big thing, and we have some freshmen that have come in, and they're very, very good, and some of those freshmen are going to be starters.
And of course, your coaching staff, Kelsey Thompson, who's done a phenomenal job leading your pitching staff, Maria and Shelby, your volunteer assistant. How critical have they been to helping this program be where they've been the last few years? Because everyone talks about yourself, rightfully so, but you have a staff who helps put everything in place to help make this team and this program successful.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there, and whether it's this staff, which I'll talk about in a second, or the ones that I've had in the past, I've had some really great assistant coaches here, and whether it's Nat Wagner Kelsey Thompson, and it's hard to describe for me on Kelsey. Kelsey's my right hand, and she's been coaching with me for a long time. She started her coaching career here as a graduate assistant. She was here for 3 years, then went on and was a head coach at USF in town here, but still stayed, very, very close to with myself and my family. And then she's been over and coaching with me for the last, I don't even know, 4 years, 5 years. I'm not sure, because she's just part of our life. And so, she is kind of, I don't know, maybe not, she's an unsung hero out in maybe the softball world because, she's so much a part of what we do here. She's our pitching coach. She also has been our hitting coach the last 2 years. But she's right there with me on making all of our decisions. And like I said, she is my right hand. And I think when you take a look at programs that have been successful, they always have, one theme in common, and it's long-standing coaches that work together. You have assistant coaches that have been there for a long time, and Kelsey's been with me for a long time. And we're nothing but grateful to her for what she brings to our program.
Well, Coach, the season is going to start for you on February 1st in Louisiana. Hopefully you will enjoy some warm weather there, and hopefully if you do everything that's done, you'll get to enjoy some more warm weather in May in Florida. Coach Gretta Melsted, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best this upcoming season.
Well, thank you very much.
And thanks again to Coach Melsted thanks to Ryan Hilgeman for setting up the interview with Coach Melsted. Always a joy to have her on. And I think with Augustana, preseason favorites in the NSIC, got Tori Shoup, who was preseason player of the year after her performance last year that won her player of the year honors. And all she did last year was hit .444, 72 hits, built on 9 home runs, was a All-American by both the NFCA and D2CCA. And Coach Melsted said this about Tori, quote, Tori has had an amazing career at Augustana. She has started since her freshman year, has been a 3-time All-American. She's an elite hitter who has great hand-eye coordination. She has been a part of many successful teams. Hitter here is an Augie, including having been to a national championship side in 2021. Tori has a love of all sports and is completing her master's degree in sports administration and leadership. Defining student athlete, ladies and gentlemen. Although not a very vocal person in general, Tori has progressively over the years become a more vocal leader on our team. It's been fun to watch Tori transform from a shy, reserved player to the confident, dominant player that she is today. And oh, by the way, you got Grace Glanzer, who is a pitcher to watch in the Northern Sun, comes over to Augustana from South Dakota State, where all she did was win Freshman of the Year and Pitcher of the Year honors, and went 52-18 with the 1.86 ERA. So you combine Shoup with the bat and Glanzer with the arm with this returning lineup. It would not be surprised if you see Augie in the mix once again, not just for the Northern Sun, but for bigger and better things. They will open up their season Thursday at the Mardi Gras Invitational, and you want to talk about a murderer's row of opponents. Their first 3 games of the season: number 22 Oklahoma Baptist, number 13 Southern Arkansas, and number 3 Central Oklahoma. And oh, by the way, they wrap up the week with number 24 Mississippi College. We're going to talk about all of those tournaments on our next edition of D2 Tuesday, because the next time we get to talk to you, we get to talk about some games. We're going to talk about some results. We're going to talk about some teams that made some impact in this opening weekend of the Division II season. We're so excited to have that for you. And oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we just got confirmation. Can we play that sounder, please? Coming up next week on D2 Tuesday, we will be joined by Grand Valley State head coach Deanna Callahan, another team who made it to Chattanooga last season. She loses a lot of star power, but is confident her ball club has what it takes, although what many people say may be a quote-unquote rebuilding year, I think Grand Valley State may surprise some people of how well they are in 2024. We'll talk to Coach Callahan to get the details about that on our next episode of D2 Tuesday. But that's going to wrap it up for this edition of D2 Tuesday. A lot of content on the Inner Circle YouTube channel. We have our Big 12 Media Days that have been rolling along. We got two more episodes today with Iowa State and Kansas. We have 2 more that will be coming out tomorrow. Follow us on our social media. We will make those announcements at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 6 a.m. for those of you early birds out in the left coast in California. 7 a.m. for those of you who are listening to us, supporters of Augie. 8 o'clock, by the way, 8 o'clock for those of you in the Central Time Zone as well. Gotta mention all time zones here. And also, we got a lot of stuff coming up next week as well. By the way, on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, because we will have our In the Circle season preview extravaganza for Division I softball. That'll be on Sunday, February the 4th, 7 p.m. We will have the link out by Wednesday evening, so you can save that link and get you set for that. But ladies and gentlemen, Division II softball is here. It is upon us, and the lane along. No, I'm still trying to figure out some catchy name to have people talk about the teams that are going to be trying to make their way to Central Florida. As soon as I figure something out, I'll let you know. I've been saying that ever since we started D2 Tuesday this year and still haven't figured anything out. But it's like Division II. It's a work in progress, folks, and the work begins on the field for real this weekend. Thanks again to our 4 phenomenal guests. Mike Davenport from North Georgia, Julie LeMaire from Nova Southeastern, Stef Ewing from Cal State San Marcos, the Hall of Famer Gretta Melsted for Augustana. Thanks to all the phenomenal SIDs. Thanks to Josh for setting up the interview with Coach LeMaire. Thanks to Ryan Hilgeman from Augustana for setting up the interview with Coach Melsted. Thanks to our great contact over at Cal State San Marcos, Mindy Mills, for getting me the contact information to set the interview with Coach Ewing. Ladies and gentlemen, we defy you to find another outlet that is going to give you all these interviews about Division II. And trust us, folks, everybody's welcome here on D2 Tuesday. Let's make this a thing, because it is not just our thing at In the Circle, it is our thing as a D2 community. That's going to do it for D2 Tuesday. I'm Victor Anderson. Remember, folks, there's more of us than there are them. We'll talk to you next time here on D2 Tuesday. Top podcasts are out. Good night, Canada. Thanks for watching this latest video. To unlock more content, click on the subscribe button and turn on your notifications. Follow us on social media by clicking at In the Circle SB down at the bottom, or download In the Circle wherever you listen to your podcast in the description field.